hope you can hear me. I'm not sure. If you can't hear me, please give me a shout real quick. But I think everything's working. Hey Jinx. Hey CJ. Kip Kitty. It's great to see y'all in here. Jill Moser. Hello. Grismatically Clever. Hello. Unmasked Truth. All right. Are y'all excited about tonight's show? Because I am. I really am. We're gonna learn a lot, I hope. Samantha, hello. All right. Somebody tell me. Let me look. Somebody tell me if you can not hear me. I don't know why I'm having such issues. Okay, good. You heard the music. Yeah, sounds a little choppy. Let me tell you. Hello, Chalk Baby. I'm going to tell you it is raining here. Hello, Aries Fire. It's raining, and so I'm hoping that my internet, you live rural. What can I say? It is what it is. Hopefully it'll work its way out. Okay. All right, so Gloria, hello. All right, and I know other people will jump in here, but let me go ahead and let's introduce our guest. All right. I don't know why I'm having so many problems. I hope that y'all can hear. All right. Tonight I want to introduce Tony Garner. Now, I just met Tony a few days ago, but I'm going to let him tell you about himself. And he has been researching the Delphi murders since the beginning. He was in the courtroom, and so I know we've heard a lot about the courtroom this week, but he's going to bring up some things that maybe we haven't heard, okay? So, welcome tonight, Tony Garner. Hello, Tony.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening in tonight, and thanks for having me, Lily. So people probably want to know a little bit about who I am and where I'm from. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from Delphi. And I started following the case initially just what was in the major media. And like most people, there just wasn't much information, right? And I didn't even really know much about true crime groups, or I didn't know anything about Facebook groups, or that there was a lot of stuff on YouTube. But I reached out to several of the YouTubers, and one group was very humble and started meeting with me, talking with me on Zoom. And we later did a video, and I met a lot of people through that initial experience. That led me to being invited to something you're probably hearing a lot circulating if you're following Delphi, about this notorious tape recording in Lafayette, Indiana. Basically, one of the people that I had met had found Hannah Shakespeare, a lifetime cable producer and writer, and she took up interest in the case and had come out to consider doing a documentary. So I got to meet with her, and we're friends to this date. That documentary was recently released through Fig Solves, although it never aired on the TV or anywhere. If you haven't seen that, look up Fig Solves and watch this wonderful video. She did a great job with it, and so many things that happened in that that were covered in that are coming to fruition today in what we're learning from the Richard Allen PCA and other documents. And I'd say the other thing, I knew a guy named Doug Rice. I became friends with him, and he is deceased now, unfortunately, a heart attack a couple of years ago. But he was just an absolute fantastic Delphi researcher, and everybody respected him. The families, He had a lot of boots on the ground people in Delphi, although he lived in way up in northern Indiana. Very many of the things that he had discovered and the people in this group ended up again appearing in the Richard Allison PCA. So it was all a very good experience for me. I feel like I've been at the table for a few of these things. I've been to several of the press conferences and was just at the recent hearing, which I thought was quite a extraordinary hearing. So I think that's probably all you need to know at this minute. And I'll take questions too.
Let me say this. You were talking about the Hannah Shakespeare documentary. Now, I know that there was, and somebody said I was too loud a minute ago. I don't know what I've done wrong. I'll back up. Or wait a second. Oh, wait, my microphone's over here. There we go. So I have seen a redacted and unredacted copy of some notes. Was that prior to the meeting? Were you in that meeting?
Yes, I was in that meeting, and so I'm going to say a few things about that. And the first thing was that everybody that attended that day had to sign an NDA, which is a no disclosure agreement, saying that we would never say anything about it, we would never talk about or reveal other people's identity in it. And this was to protect the integrity of the film as well as the confidentiality of the people that attended that. So it probably was never supposed to be released. People were allowed to record it for their own personal use. So there were people who just had phones out on the table recording it. But this was probably about 12 people, and some that came in and out through the day. Some were locals who had information they felt was pertinent. But most of it was just like us today, sitting down, talking about the case. And this was Hannah, and just trying to learn more about it and to prepare her for whether she was going to do the film or not. So I do believe she gave permission to Fig to comment on it, and maybe some other people to comment on it. But I don't believe the tapes were ever authorized for release. I did look at the redacted link that you sent me, and a lot of that conversation I don't even recall people saying. And plus, an artificial intelligence filter was used to so it doesn't make a lot of sense, a lot of it. And then there were a lot of things that weren't on there, which probably it's best that they weren't on there because they probably should remain confidential. But I can't get into a whole lot of details about it, but maybe that helps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't expect you to. And I know some people have released and talked about the redacted version, but I've got a copy. I've read it. I will not share that because I understood it was not supposed to be released. So I mean, I'm going to respect people's privacy. It's
Sure.
And look, that conversation's pretty rough too.
There were some interesting things that happened that day for sure. There's no doubt. There's almost a fight that broke out at one point between someone that showed up kind of unexpectedly and got in a shouting match with Grace.
No, I can't believe people do that.
But other than that, it was a lot of people talking. It was very exciting to be there and to listen to all this, and and people definitely were opinionated, and very conversative.
It seems like the Delphi case works people up more than anything I've ever seen in my life. I mean, really.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so you were there in the early days, and I'm going to, I want you to tell us what maybe we don't talk about as much. What are the points of the Delphi case that you think about that haven't been done to death? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll have to think about that for a minute. I mean, I had some specific things that, I wanted to hit on tonight that I think that are of note. And one is all the stuff that Doug Carter read at the April 2019 presser. And I do not believe these were his words in some sections. I think that his description of the killer was written by FBI criminology psychologists, and it was a profile. And when they said things like, we know this is about power and control to you, we think you're hiding in plain sight, those were conclusions I think that they had come to from, how they analyzed the crime. And I think a lot of that we see in what Richard Allen has done recently and what we've learned about Richard Allen. And one is that one of the first things Richard Allen does after he allegedly commits the crime is he comes up and tells the conservation officer, yeah, I was out there that day. And as far as we know, he did this before any of the images were released from Libby's phone. Mm-hmm. And I believe he preemptively had decided he was going to do this because just being seen out there, and he knows he's going to be seen because there's always people out there. He doesn't know he's going to be videotaped. But I think that that's about the power and control to go right up to the edge and say, oh yeah, I was out there. Yeah, so I saw these three girls, and he didn't see Abby and Libby, of course, he says. But we knew about them back in the video that Hannah did. She interviews one of the witnesses, and it's the exact same description that we see in the Richard Allen PCA. So anyhow, so I think that's one of the elements there. Think about how controlling you would have to be to approach a law enforcement officer after committing a murder, and just say, oh yeah, I was out there, and how that slipped through the cracks, who knows? But I see it also in some of the things that are happening with him in the jail now with that we've learned, and we'll talk about when we talk about the court hearing, that his weight loss is due to hunger strikes. Mm-hmm. So that takes a lot of willpower to do that, right? I know I can't miss a meal, let alone how they defined it as 4 or more meals. So he's pretty regularly doing that, and that's not like they're not feeding him enough, because we didn't know that until the court hearing. That was one of the big, I thought important moments is when we learned that he was in some part causing this to occur.
Right, and I mean, okay, and it's like we talked before backstage. I'm going to argue, and even when it's just me talking, I can argue both sides. I feel like, and I know a lot of viewers have already opinions, like we already know, or, what people think and what they don't, or they have their own theories. But here's the thing. I believe, truly, that we have to hear both sides of a story and actually in our heads argue both sides to come to the truth. Sure. And I mean, as you said, I was thinking about that on my way home today about Richard Allen and him, why would he, just volunteer the information that he was on the bridge, he was wearing these clothes. And one part of me says, well, because he had nothing to hide, right? He was there and they were looking for information. Yeah, I was there. I saw the girls, but not those girls. He's a good guy. On the other hand, we know that narcissists, unalivers of people historically have inserted themselves into the case and, try to muddle it up or just, try to get people off. So, without knowing his character, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know.
Right. And certainly he's due his trial, and I think he has excellent lawyers. You've got a great judge. He's gonna get his opportunity for a fair trial. If it goes to trial, it may not.
I guess that's the thing, though, with everybody saying that he confessed. Now, I've heard different reports. I was not in the courtroom, and we don't have a transcript from court, but, some people say, he confessed to other people, and other reports I've seen said that he basically made statements that inferred he was there or he was associated with. So what actually did they say?
Sure. So the interesting thing is that this was introduced by Razi one of the attorneys for the defense, and he said something to the effect of, the client has implicated himself in the crime, and you're going to hear all about this. And he says one thing one day, and he says something different the next. So they were basically trying to convince you that that he's psychotic and he doesn't know whether he did it or didn't do it. And he's changing his story all the time. And it was really important for Rozzy to introduce it because this is a big power play. To kind of to bring it out yourself instead of someone else bringing it out. The murder sheet. If you haven't listened to their recap of that, I would encourage people to listen to their podcast. And they did an excellent job of recapping what all was said. But so Nick McClellan, the prosecution, goes on to say that he has confessed 5 or 6 times to multiple individuals. Okay, very clearly has said that, and he brought up every time he got an opportunity to do that. That's really, to me, like, this is going to be really hard to walk this back, and my initial thought on it was if given details from the crime that only the killer would know, then that would be really conclusive. But upon second thought, he's been served his discovery. So that's all the details of the crime. So if he confessed after he got the discovery and gave details, it really doesn't mean as much. You follow me?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to start rolling through some of this from the court, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
I think this fits in with what we're talking about. One of the most important pieces, I thought, of the hearing was when they had the warden of Westville, where Richard Allen's being held. They had him called up as initially called by the defense as a witness, and they asked him at what point did Richard Allen did he flip? Is how McClellan put it. When did he start showing odd behavior, suicidal behavior? And the warden said when he was served his paperwork, once he got his discovery. I just think that's huge because
you're right. It could
be saying, okay, now I know I'm going to get clobbered, and I know that they know all these things, and so that, if anything, just brings out the suicidal behavior or if he is faking psychosis, and we talked in the backstage a little bit about this, about my impressions of the psychosis and what symptoms he's having. But go ahead. I've said a lot. If you have any questions or anybody has anything on this, what I've said so far.
Well, we've got a lot in chat, but you're right. I think that point, and I have always been I've been open-minded about this, and I've been harsh in my criticism of Carroll County and the justice system. However, you're right about the timing because understand that while I work at a jail, I work at a county jail, I am very used to inmates, and are they inherently deceptive? Yes, they are. Some of them should win Oscars for their performances, okay? And that's on the daily. Now, that doesn't tell me that Richard Allen is that kind of person, but the timing does. And I guess what I would want to know is that absolutely true? Because if it is, it makes a big difference. If McClelland is taking liberties and there was a medicine change or a health, again. But it's a brilliant
or someone else felt like it happened at a different time point, right?
Right.
So one thing that I also want to go to about Richard Allen, and weed back to some statements made by the former prosecutor, Robert Ives. He's gone on record a couple times and has said that there were bizarre signatures at the crime scene.
Yes.
And he's even gone as far as to describe it as like, if you saw this, you would take pictures of at least 3 things because they're so odd and unusual. So we kind of wondered, what does that mean? What could that be about? Well, what if the killer did some really strange stuff because later he's going to try and act like he's crazy, and that's why he did it. And again, this is just me connecting dots. I don't know this, but that's just a deductive, interpretation of, what, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to try to get out of power and control. I have all these different plans of like, how am I going to, control the show?
Well, I mean, you have to. And I would hope that, as much as a lot of us have doubted Richard Allen's guilt up to now, I being one of them, just because he didn't fit the profile, I also don't want to see a guilty man go free.
Right.
So I try to think like a juror. And, you're absolutely correct. It's, you have to take all these things into consideration. And that's, I'm sure, they're going to bring this up in trial and, hash it out. And I guess we'll kind of see where the chips land. But, yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of things that can, make somebody make a false confession as well. But I said a lot about that in my last video, so I want you to talk. Just tell me to shut up.
Well, no, not at all. No, I think all those are valid points, Lily. So another thing about me is I have a mental health background as far as my career. I worked for 20 years in research, and I was a program leader on inpatient psych units, wrote groups, and did programming. And so I have some familiarity with psychotic behavior and such. And if one opinion I have is, he looked glaringly psychotic in the courtroom, unmedicated in appearance, wild-eyed, staring, very paranoid, fearful expression on his face. And I would think that kind of symptomology would be, they could get that under control pretty quickly with medication. He's certainly seen some, I'm sure, a competent psychiatrist, So that's unusual that's going on. So how could we prove this, right? So we know that the defense has tried to get the medical records and the psychiatric records, and they're probably not going to be able to get that because of Indiana law confidentiality. Yeah. But one thing I think that the prosecution could do, the prosecution could do is that they could order their own testing and get a judge to order something such as the MMPI. And this is a test, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And this test will show things like a person's delusion, if the person is delusional, paranoid, they have anxiety, depression, and best of all, it shows whether a person is trying to fake good or bad.
Right.
And it's hidden in the inventory. I've seen that. I'm not licensed to do the test, but I've taken a class in it, and I know how it works basically. But the questions are hidden. In it's like 600 questions. Okay, so something like this, and this doesn't prove insanity. There are other tests that are used in court for trying to prove insanity or not. But this test would be a great, starting place to see if he's trying to fake good or bad, and if he is actually having, delusional behavior and experiences, and also whether he has a personality disorder such as narcissism, antisocial components, things like that. But that would be something I would like to see the prosecution do.
Oh, absolutely. So would I. I mean, just because I want to know the truth. But let me ask you this, because this is the one question that I've had this last week. Let's say, if Richard Allen did make a full, total confession to multiple people in the jail, why wouldn't the defense just let him plea bargain? What would be the benefit of them taking this whole thing to trial?
Well, I think that that he probably has not just come out and said, yeah, I did it, We don't have any, like, just, I surrender. Yeah, I totally did it. I think that he's probably said this to some people, and then at other times maybe he denies it, or, we don't really know what he's trying to do here, or, is he really, out of it? But I would see them, trying to, at least initially, um, try to defend this. I've talked to somebody who's very intelligent, follows the case very closely, and she didn't think that that these confessions would be damning at all. I disagree. I think it's a huge big deal, and as long as that's allowed in the court, then I think that it will influence the jury. I think it very well could.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see this, Tony, but I want to
Mhm.
respond to TB, who says, "Oh my God, you've all drawn, quartered, and hung the dude because of media misinformation." Um, First of all, I think I've probably been one of Richard Allen's biggest advocates as far as trying to be fair. Um, but I mean, so watch my past videos. Uh, but that the thing is, it's not. It's information, but if you have partial information, you go on that partial. So, what Tony's saying about this is what they said in court and he confessed, yeah, but we don't know. I mean, working in the jail, and I know we talked about what did they call it? It's not the partner, it's the companion program that Westville
Right.
has.
Hmm.
In that companion program with another inmate, if that's one of the people that he confessed to or something like that, you don't know what all can be drilled in somebody's head. You don't know what he hears from people who serve him meals, who, come and, give him new, clothes, fresh blankets, whatever. They can also undermine. And I hope it doesn't happen too much in the jail that I work at, but I can't say that because I am not there. And I mean, is there a chance that, people were drilling things in his head and he's already a little bit loopy? It is a possibility, but it is only a possibility. I mean, you still have, well, he said things to implicate himself. You have to dig in more. So I don't, TB, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want you to feel like I have personally made that. I'm still trying, I'm still in the discovery phase.
Yeah, and I really am too. I mean, I just feel that what I've seen so far indicates, my opinion that he is likely one of the people involved in their death. Now, of course, you have to have a trial. This isn't a trial. This is just a discussion. That's all
Hmm.
it is. And it's going to have biases. I'm certain. I'll acknowledge the bias of my own thoughts and research. Sure. But that's, hey, Frank. Um, uh, that's just where the chips are falling right now, how I see them.
Yeah, and I mean, I am too because there are so many things that seem to uh, suggest that maybe he was involved. Even, let's just say, possibility, let's look at all possibilities. Was he somehow roped into being involved and didn't actually commit the biggest part of the crime? Well, he's still going to go down for it according to
Yeah.
Indiana law.
Yeah, and that's the
So,
reason they went with felony murder versus a different category of murder charge, because he just has to, take them under his control, and that ends up resulting in their death. And it doesn't have to mean that he intended to kill them or that he
right.
intended their death. Yeah, for sure.
Um, okay, so I mean, I've stopped you a lot, Tony. Just
No, you're fine. This is a conversation is what we want, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you keeping your eye on the comments too. Sometimes it's kind of hard to concentrate for me on what I'm saying, and
Oh,
also, there's so many comments on there. Too many good comments.
absolutely.
Um, but so let's talk about that companion program idea for a little bit, because this was like a shocking thing to me when I heard about it. Because like you would never do something like this in a mental health hospital. You would never have another patient supervise a
Right.
patient this high level of a guy, and then
Mhm.
putting somebody in front of the door. And a lot of Rozzy's um, uh, discussion with the prison staff on the stand was, are these people allowed to talk to Richard Allen? And they said they're not supposed to, but it was clear that they weren't being supervised, and they sometimes were standing only a couple feet away from where they could talk to him, And so, and then at one point, they brought up the name of an inmate, and Murder Sheet talked about that in an episode that came out yesterday. And this guy's a horrible child molester that has a long history of trying to get out of his consequences, as well as he's been trying to sue the correctional facility for this and that. They lost his name, all kinds of stuff. And so he's not going to be a reputable source. But at one point, Rozzy asked the captain of the Westfield unit where Allen is held, is this man on that unit? And he said, yes, he is. So then, of course, everybody started digging on him to find this out. So maybe we don't know how that guy fits into this. We have no idea whether he was somebody that took the confession. He's somebody that was the companion. He's somebody who could have wrote the defense and said, oh, yeah, it's a terrible conditions up here. You could have, it could be anything, but it did pop up in the courtroom. And they did take him off that companion thing, because to me, it just didn't seem smart, like to have somebody, if you're going to have this guy supervised for suicide, to put that on another inmate, I just could not believe that when that came out.
Yeah, I mean, in our jail, they're not necessarily by themselves unless they absolutely cannot be with another human. And we've got one or two like that. But they'll be in there with another inmate with maybe similar charges, or so it's inmate, no companion. And that, yeah, that kind of worries me, because like I said, inmates, they do what they do. Most of them have been charged in prison. Most of them are already, sentenced. And so they have nothing to lose. Will they say or do anything for a better sentence or better conditions? Absolutely, they will. It doesn't make it untrue, but it doesn't make it true. So I guess that's what I'm saying is, before we take it and run with it and say, oh, well, he confessed, well, let's get the details. Because if he did, he did, and then we're all wrong. Well, not all of us. So. But, a lot of us are going to have to say, well, I guess maybe he did. Or, it's still that I need more information to make an informed decision on this.
Well, and one of the other things that came up in the court, which was to much delight, is that there's going to be a website put up, which is going to have all kinds of documents about this case released, and that should be within the next 10 days or so, we're thinking. So that was something that Anya and Kevin, and there may have been some other groups that have petitioned the court too that influenced this decision, but Anya and Kevin certainly should get kudos for the recent filing that seems to move the mountain.
I hope so. I mean, I'm waiting, for those documents to drop, and they think there's like 100 and what did I hear, 135 pages or something like that. It's the number that I heard.
It seemed to me, and again, we couldn't record it and everything, and it was hard to hear in that courtroom. But yeah, I think it might even be 135 documents. Maybe it was 135 pages, but that sounds
okay.
Right. But it was something that they couldn't even put onto my case. They're going to do a separate website through the Allen County um, it'll be an Allen County website. So it's obviously going to be a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing. I plan to sit down with the documents and read it
Mhm.
very, very carefully. Now, I mean, what they found, and what always, if you watch trials and stuff, especially live, but even on TV, if you listen to the prosecutor's side, and the whole argument, you are 100% convinced that that person is guilty. And then the defense gets up and they refute so much stuff, and you're like, oh, well, it was this way because. So I think it's the same way. You can look at it and say, oh, this really, if we're looking at what they found, what they were looking for, um, it can make somebody look really guilty. However, when you hear the other side of the story, it just depends. I don't I personally think that if Richard Allen is guilty, the defense is doing a great job of trying to defend him. I mean, and that's, you would hope, you would hope. However, um, again, I don't want to see him not prosecuted if he is guilty. But at this point, Tony, he's gone through so much. Like, there's so much going on. I almost would hope that he confesses and it's real, because I could sleep better at night. You know what I'm saying? If
Sure.
I knew that he said yes and he gives details that nobody knows and he said I'm 100% guilty, I would at least sleep better. What I don't want to happen is for the trial to end and still have all of these questions and I don't know. It's kind of like OJ. Everybody, he was found not guilty, but everybody in the world was like, yeah, he was guilty. Um, I don't want that kind of trial.
I think that they have a lot of strong evidence. We will see, um,
Yeah.
and hope, and we may see that sooner than later. The One of the things that came out in the courtroom, which again, I thought as the trial began, he is an absolute prize fighter of an attorney, and
Hmm.
he the way he went after Sheriff Lesenby, or Deputy Lesenby now, and his line of questioning, he's very articulate, he's very intelligent, he's very quick, and witty, and he, I thought, wow, he's off the start, but I didn't
Hmm.
feel like McClellan had the upper hand by the time the day was over. And when, particularly, some of the items I'm gonna talk about now that came up in the court that I felt, answered a lot of questions for me, were when they got the warden of the prison up there.
Hmm.
And this guy, I can see how someone might think he was unsympathetic, but he was basically unflappable, and he was tough, and he answered the questions directly. McClellan asked a whole series of questions about the photographs taken of Richard Allen, where he appears to be disheveled in dirty clothes,
Hmm.
pointing at a stain on his shirt. And they ask him, and he lost a lot of weight. And they ask him, well, what's your opinion about, his, weight loss, and how often is he fed, and what have you? And they said, well, he's been going on hunger strikes, and that's being defined as when he misses 4 consecutive meals. So
Hmm.
that's something he's doing again. I know I already talked about that, but they also talked about, why is he in this dirty shirt? They said, well, he has clean clothes in his room. He has brand new clothes from commissary. He wears this dirty shirt. He puts it on underneath the jumpsuit when he's taking the recreation, so they don't really know what's underneath the jumpsuit. And when they came to get him from recreation for him to see his attorneys, he chose not to change into clean clothes. And then he's pointing at his shirt and getting this picture taken. That's manipulative, folks. I don't. I mean, that's how it is. It's manipulative on the part of the defense. It's manipulative on the part of on Richard Allen. And So that answered some questions for me. I thought those were very powerful things to have brought up.
Yeah.
And Rosie says, on the cross, he said, how do you know that? You didn't see him there, did you? He goes, I watched the videotape of him going back to the cell and he didn't change his clothes. So that's huge testimony.
Yeah.
And also some other things that they said about that. Again, McClellan asking the warden, about his mental status, and they said, well, sometimes he acts like this, and sometimes he's very clear. He's very clear. I talked to him just yesterday, and had a very clear conversation with him. So that he goes in and out of these, moods or states. It's interesting, So unmasked here with he should be detained in jail, not in a prison with convicted felons. Cass County can handle Westville is not equipped, and for a man presumed innocent. So much of this hearing was about that. In fact, almost all of this hearing was about what Unmasked is talking about right there. And so some things that come up in the hearing that are important about this. They had the sheriff from Cass County speaking on behalf of the Cass County Jail, who states, if a judge writes the order, we'll take him, but I don't really want to take him. Well, okay. So he goes on to describe how their modern facility, how Richard Allen be kept. And they said, well, initially he would not have a roommate. But basically they could not guarantee that he would have a roommate at some point. And they also said that he would pass other inmates in the halls while going to other activities. Those are two concerns I have. I think it's ridiculous that they couldn't just say, no, this guy doesn't get a roommate the whole time he's there. He also would have, I believe, medical assessment, like maybe 3 days a week. They would have medical staff there in the Cass County Jail, and maybe, I believe they said, so many hours a week for mental health, whereas at the correctional facility, that's there every day. And the point was brought up that what he would have at Cass County is not going to be any different than at the correctional facility in Westville. Well, I don't know. And at the end of the day, Nick McClellan says, we're not opposed to you moving him. We just, we need, some things in place, basically is where. And I wouldn't be surprised if they moved him. But those would be my concerns, about moving him, would be that he didn't have, the proper monitoring medically and psychiatric wise. They would have a video camera, I believe they said, on him 24/7, and I believe they said they had that on him now at the correctional facility, as well as a one-on-one supervision.
Oh yeah, if he's in suicide, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, high risk for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get the point. Don't do anything, at least for optics, don't do anything that could result in an appeal later. You want to, I think this has opened a lot of our eyes to what prison life is like.
Oh yeah.
When this first story broke, where they called it a dog kennel, a 6 foot by whatever cell, I Googled what is the size of the prison cell. Well, it's something like that, 6 by 8 foot. So something that comes up in the court hearing with McClellan, or excuse me, Rossi actually had to introduce it himself. I believe he said to the warden, him speaking for himself, Rossi saying, I was wrong about the size of the jail, right, of the cell, right? And he said, yeah, it's 12 by 8.5. And Rossi kind of tries to minimize and said, yeah, what did I say, a couple feet less than that? Well, he said 6 by significantly smaller, so to me, these are important details, and I don't know whether he just made a mistake or whether that was intentional. But these things are, they know what the size of these cells are,
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know, and it does. Someone said, yeah, it sounds horrible, and yeah, it does sound horrible, but it's the reality of.
It is. And
so I'm okay with him being moved to a different place. one of the other issues that came up was about the transportation. And this was like Carroll County can't do it because they only have like one person available to to transport inmates. And even like the sheriff has had to drive an inmate to I believe Kentucky, you know. I mean, so they need more people. And so they would have to have, ISP or somebody devote resources. And supposedly ISP is kind of like, kind of shrug their shoulders about, whether they could do something like this. And it doesn't sound like, though, that the prosecution has made a real serious attempt to try to find those resources. But,
Yeah.
you see when he's brought in, I mean, there's the National Guards there, it's like, a bunch of people that Westville provides some of that, whereas once he would be moved to Cass County would not provide any manpower to transport him. It would fall back on Carroll County unless they had come up with some kind of other arrangement.
Right. And that's so true. And everything, and I said this in my first video about, these conditions are normal. And I understand. First of all, Tony, I think at this point there's so much controversy over his conditions at Westville and the history of Westville that they're gonna have to move him, or else there's gonna be an outcry and maybe, possible reasons for a mistrial or whatever. But you're right in that. Okay, first of all, I know because we house overflow of the DOC until they can get there. And even though I think our jail is pretty well equipped to handle, different kinds of inmates, we don't have a doctor on staff every day. Now we've got nurses, but we don't have doctors. We don't have a psychiatrist. Like
Right.
Prisons typically have a lot better
Right.
medical staff.
Right.
And so, yes, is there going to be a difference? Yes, he's probably in some ways going to have to downgrade. And I say that I do not know the conditions at Westville. Like, I haven't walked in the building. I've heard not good things. But, is he going to be in the general population at Cass County? No. No, he's not. He's still going to be in a little cell somewhere. Now, hopefully, if this is a big if there is something nefarious going on at Westville, then hopefully it can be resolved at Cass County. But typically, your county jails do not have the resources that prisons do for everything.
Right. And a lot of, also, just for those that were not there and have not read a lot of the recap, a lot of the rationale behind putting him in Westville was about his own safety and to make sure that another inmate didn't harm him. And because this is notorious for people that have committed crimes against children, to be retaliated against or accused of child crimes, and that could happen in these smaller county jails where they just don't have the staff supervision. It was actually shocking to hear how little staff they have at Carroll County Jail. I mean, I'd be scared to death to work somewhere like that. And like me and one other guy had all 30 of the clients. It would be it'd be pretty intimidating. To have that low of staff ratio.
Yeah.
For those jails.
And I mean, you're right saying that people weren't aware of jail conditions until this came out. Well, that's true. And a lot of the stuff that you're complaining about, and I'm not saying it's unfounded, but I've said this over and over and over. If you are upset with these jail conditions, then why don't you, vote for, do whatever, take a stand for jail reform? Because it's from the outward. Now, like we talked about, there's a lot of things that you can do to torture somebody in jail that falls, under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, the size of the cell, the things that he's experiencing, even the vest, You know, a lot of people, Tony, had a big problem with that shock vest.
Right.
Okay, first of all, if he was being shocked with that shock vest, you would know. Okay,
Right.
he's not being
You have to
shocked.
document that. Yeah, it's not like they're sitting there just zapping him.
Yeah, just say, no, don't you say that. You're getting a little shock. No, it's more like a taser shock, okay?
Right.
It's like
Sure.
it's a big shock. And I mean, he would be sitting there going, ah,
Right.
you, they're not secretly doing something to him. And my question was, and I don't know the answer to this, it is not protocol for everybody in our jail to go to court in a vest, but he's in a prison. So is it protocol? Or is there a reason? Is he, in danger of hurting himself or others? And that's the thing, like, we can't just assume that Westville is treating him badly if they do that to everybody. Now, if we can watch other people come and go and they say, no, that doesn't happen, then that is a valid point for the defense.
Yeah, for sure. One question that did not come up in the courtroom, which I just couldn't believe that the defense didn't ask, is who is making the decisions about how Richard Allen is being treated at Westville? Who made they made a big deal that he's getting like some things the other inmates don't get, such as he's been allowed a face-to-face visit. He got a new iPad or communication device, whatever the tablet is.
Mm-hmm.
Who is making that call? What individual, and where is the copy of this? Who ordered the companion? Where is this coming from? But it never came up. It was never asked.
Yeah, that would be something that you'd want to know too. I know. That makes a big difference. What surprised you most about the hearing?
Well, I guess there were just, a number of, big announcements, from the information going to be released, upcoming, to the confessions, to the reasons that Richard Allen has lost weight and why his clothes are dirty. Those are all like things that stood out to me. Those are the main things. But there wasn't anything that was like that really super surprised me, about it. Just sort of the takeaways, the big things. A lot was made about that he is. Who has he talked to the other inmates?
Mm-hmm.
That makes you wonder whether one of those people did he confess to an inmate. It also was brought up that that there's been a phone call that was recorded that the prosecution sent to the defense. Mm-hmm. So there's something in that, whether it's a confession or who knows. I mean, I think they're trying to get a good clip of his voice, to compare to Down the Hill, etc. But it was sent to the defense as discovery, and so the defense, Rozzy, was complaining about this to the warden, like wanting to know were his phone calls being taped, and well, they all record all that stuff, Mm-hmm. They also made a big deal about here's something that was shocking, and that when Allen has met with his attorneys, they've had very little privacy. People have been in the room with them, as well as a guy walking around with a camcorder outside a glass window, as I understood it. And so they wouldn't get the audio from outside the window. A lot was made of this, that he just was not getting. They weren't getting proper privacy. In fact, Judge Galt did rule for him not to be videotaped during outside of like just supervision videotapes. And I think that's standard, is what basically most of these jail experts, people employed at the jail, said that they always tape that in case the attorneys get attacked or something like that. But that's different, something that doesn't have audio, that's up at the top of the room, and just, documentation of what happened. That's not lip reading or, audio of breaking the client privilege or anything like that. But it was shocking that that they weren't really able to meet with him, more confidentially.
Yeah, that is a little concerning, and depending on what they can prove about that, I mean, that's a huge no-no.
Right.
But yeah, as far as like telephone conversations and stuff like that, I mean, your chirps, like your text back and forth, and of course any, snail mail letters, they all are looked at by the jail. Oh, my cat. Y'all thought you had
Yours
to
did it first.
she
Might have been
knocked.
behaving it tonight. Sometimes they're climbing on my head when I'm on Zoom and stuff.
I don't know how she did that. That was a really heavy lamp she knocked over. Yeah, this is what's fun about lives, y'all.
Yeah. I probably just said something's going to get knocked over in the background.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, whatever. Here we are. Okay, so I completely lost my train of thought on there. Go ahead, tell us something, because I'm lost.
Okay, so one of the things that's happened in terms of the my case filings is we've had the prosecution has been trying to get his medical records and psychiatric records. Well, I was like, well, why are they trying to do that? Well, there's rumors going around that at least one of these confessions was to one of these medical staff. So I'm curious as to whether they could write a specific, filing for a confession to, a medical or mental health worker that would be, out of and not include the mental health or the medical information. We don't need that HIPAA protected information. We want to hear what he said if he did say something to, the practitioner. And that's just my opinion about that. Now, having worked in the field, I reached out to a couple friends about this that I used to work with, and because it seemed to me, being consistent with duty to warn, if a psychiatric patient tells a staff member that they're going to kill their boss or something like that, there's a duty to warn that person. So they have to break the person's confidentiality in order to protect the individual.
Right.
So I guess that's not the same as what's maybe going on here in terms of a confession, if that did indeed occur. We don't know that, but I'm just going to read what my friend who's a psychiatric nurse practitioner said, and she says, my experience is quite limited here, but my understanding is that the info shared by patients is privileged unless there is duty to report, which encompasses child abuse or discussion of an impending or future crime or fraud in our state. This includes duty to warn. Privilege is not suspended because of a subpoena or record request alone. The patient must consent in writing, or there should be an order from a judge. That's all I know, and I don't even know that is accurate. There's a lot of gray area here, and I've had to be advised by lawyers in the past, case by case. So,
yeah,
just some food for thought on that issue.
Well, I mean, as a nurse, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback now. As a nurse, I had to really think. Somebody asked me that question. Is that something? Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's duty to warn if there is a crime going to happen or happening at the moment, whatever. I think the rest of it for us has always been it's confidential. Nobody wants to get in court and talk about, especially a patient, because there's so many variables. You'll be picked apart as a medical professional. Well, what medicines were they on? It's like you don't want to go there. I do want to address this question from Kay.
Yes.
The RA search warrant shouldn't have differed too much from RL's. We should have been dealing with the same set of facts in regards to the crime. Something tells me they're vastly different. I mean, even just reading the PCA, on Richard Allen was different than the search warrant a lot. Like it was, I don't know. Tell me what you think about that, Tony.
Well, first of all, we haven't seen the Richard Allen search warrant, but I bet we get to see it soon, and that's one of the documents I'm going to go to first, is to see what they were looking for, what they found. I would love to talk about, two things, and maybe we could shift gears to the Kagan Klein search and
Oh, sure.
the Ron Logan search, because I have some things that maybe people haven't heard before about that.
Okay.
And Kagan Klein, him and his father's home was searched in February of 2017, just after the crime, and it was searched in regards to the death of Libby and Abby. And he was almost immediately cleared. Now, they found a treasure trove of child solicitation and pornographic evidence that, of course, he doesn't go to jail for like years after that. And people speculated. There's all kinds of theories about that, right? That they were maybe trying to see what he would do, or they were trying to find, other people going into the Dropbox, and all kinds of different theories. But I'm going to bring up a name now, okay? And I'm going to read it right off of the witness list that you can't see, of course, but that if for when originally when Kagan Klein was going to go to trial, there's a list of 15 or so witnesses, and witness I is Nicole Robertson, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Well, I knew the name because the name that is the person that wrote the search warrant and the PCA for Ron Logan.
Right.
And I knew a little bit about her background. She is an FBI specialist who, amongst other things, specializes in child trafficking and child solicitation. I do not think that she was brought in by any coincidence alone to look at this crime. And so at that time, I believe they were looking at Abby and Libby as having been trafficked in some way. So there's lots of different types of trafficking. Okay, it's not just like, kidnapping somebody and selling them to somebody in Mexico or something. There's all kinds of different ways of trafficking somebody.
Yeah.
But okay, so if we go to if we look at and we've never seen the Kagan Klein search warrant. We don't have that. We don't know the Tony Klein search warrant. We don't know what they were looking for there or why. But man, that would be something we would love to see. But if you go to the Ron Logan search warrant, there's a whole section in there about items being looked for that are related to computers and photographic devices. And I'm even gonna read that. I mean, I know everybody's seen that 1,000 times, but I think that's really important here because, like, if you're looking at a 70-some-year-old man who allegedly they think killed these girls on his property, and how do you feel so certain about all these cameras and things and these drives, et cetera, and so on? And let me take a second to find that, because I'm gonna try to tie those two things together here. Maybe I've got this going on.
Yeah, take your time. I did not realize that Nicole Robertson was a specialist in that area.
Yeah. Now you can find her.
Huge.
They've removed a lot of information about her on the internet. There is one article you can find where it does mention it, and it talks about her investigating a bank robbery, but it also says she, it details like she's one of a group of agents working on a child trafficking situation. So this is what they ended up writing in for the search, and it says computers and computer equipment, digital storage devices, tapes, cassettes, cartridges, streaming tape, commercial software and hardware, computer disks, flash drives, disk drives, monitors, computer printers, modems, tape drives, disk application program, data disks, system disk operating systems, magnetic media floppy disk, computer software, hardware, and software operating manuals, tape systems, and hard drive, and other computer-related operation equipment, digital cameras, scanners, in addition to computer photographs, graphic interchange formats, or photographs, undeveloped photographic film slides, or other visual descriptions of each graphic interchange format equipment. We understand why you'd be looking for that when you talk about Kagan Klein, but why are you looking for it at Ron Logan's? Because they thought that there was some connection between Tony Klein, Kagan Klein, and Ron Logan, and they thought they were going to find that. And did they find it? No, they did not find it.
Yeah.
But that's just to give you an idea of what was going on at that time. And is that still involved today? You know, what Kay, brought up is, did they look? We'll see on that search warrant. If it doesn't mention any of these things, then, I think they have to have a probable cause, though. They can't just look for these things because they want to look for it, because it'll get thrown out as hearsay,
Yeah.
But I think I think it's all very interesting, and we will see what they were looking for at Richard Allen's, and I want to know what Richard Allen's level of computer literacy is. Not just was he following the girls or anything, but I want to know, did he have the ability to like hack into maybe one of these drop boxes or witness some kind of other things going on that maybe Kagan Klein was involved with? Because when you hear the stuff about Kagan, it's so hard to not to think he was involved. I mean, it just seems like, how can Kagan Klein not be involved in this? He lied about where he was. He talked to her on the phone. He said he was supposed to meet her out there.
Mm-hmm.
How can he not, be involved with this in some way, shape, or form? It seems beyond, a coincidence.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yet, we can see that there's been no arrest for that. So,
Yeah.
what do you think? Just your hypothesis. I know about Ron Logan. Do you think I'm not saying that he was involved. Obviously, they didn't arrest him. But do you think that he had any knowledge of, just your supposition, of what happened that day?
I think that the most incriminating thing is just that before the bodies were found, he's setting up an alibi with his cousin.
Yeah.
And if he had anything to do with knowing about the crime, though, I mean, would he really have taken the risk of driving to Lafayette to,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how does he pull all that off? It is suspicious when we hear that, and a lot of people, when they read that warrant, they're like, yeah, Ryan Logan's guilty. I mean, Nicole Robertson, she felt he was guilty because he was creating an alibi before a crime was discovered.
Right.
And that's exactly how she put it. Now that I try and.
Can you think of any other reason that he would have done that if he wasn't involved? Like, what else would make somebody think, I'm going to need an alibi, if you didn't know?
This one's got to come up here.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's his sister.
Aw. Hi, Kitty.
She's probably gonna knock the whole. She's gonna knock the camera and everything, and this is all gonna go. You're gonna land up so pillow.
Gotta love this cat.
Oh man. All right. No, it's really hard to think of how this would have gone down with him being involved in it. I think that he knew he had been treated very poorly by Carroll County in the past, and he knew they were after him. I don't think that, from what I know, that Aki did a very good job defending him, and that's but they certainly did go after him in the past, and I think he did think that as soon as they figured out that they were asking lots of questions, and as soon as they figured out that he wasn't that he had been driving, that they were going to throw the book at him, and they did.
Yeah.
So no, I've never been a Ron Logan. I've never felt Ron Logan was the guy. I know there's a lot of people. There's circulating ideas that Ron Logan and Tony Klein knew each other, and I just think, man, if they found that, I mean, nobody seems to have any information about that, right?
Yeah.
You would think that would be easy to find. Rick Snay has, been able to talk with Tony, and which is I'm glad that he has a relationship with him, and they we just don't know that he has the mental faculty to be involved with a complex crime.
Yeah.
Tony, and the it's it's hard for me to implicate him.
I mean, obviously, he hasn't been. I guess it's, there are just so many ifs and ands, and I think I'm going to be very interested to see that search warrant for
Mm-hmm.
Allen. If it does not mirror what they did for Ron Logan, I'm going to say, I'm going to call some BS. I really am.
But just in speculating, okay, Ron
Yeah.
Logan was somebody who essentially was probably ruled out, and they may have decided that that connection and those things they were looking for the wrong things, and the tips the information that they considered. Well, the things they were looking for on Ron Logan, such as animal hairs and fibers, and we've heard lots of rumors about a cat, being dug up and a cat hair matching, the hairs that were found on Abby and Louie's body. Well, that'll be interesting. We'll see if that's in the evidence. There were also 2 clothing items that were missing that were never found at the crime scene. We would think that they would be looking for that at Richard Allen's. That would be in that list of things. If it's not, it's suspicious. So that would be something that would concern me.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry. I think that is one of the things that would probably help him out. I mean, certainly Richard Allen having better access to his legal team would be in everybody's best interest.
Yeah. So one really big bang moment that happened in the court was Judge Gall says to the defense, "This seems to be more about your convenience than anything else." And you knew where he was being held when you took him as a client, and it was kind of, ooh boy, she just kind of put the kibosh on that concept. Now, of course, he's not going to have an attorney that's all the way up there in Westville. Yeah, they need to have better access to him. I would agree. That you don't want, and again, the state doesn't want anybody to have some reason to appeal this. You don't want somebody, to come back later and get a conviction overturned because you didn't get enough opportunity to see his lawyers. So.
Oh yeah, because that would be, I mean, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'd be horrible.
And so, I mean, yeah, he needs a fair trial.
Right.
Do you think that there is any chance, and I know, is there any chance that they would feel better about him not making it to trial? Or do you think that would be like, okay, because let me just put it out there. A lot of people have thought they put him in Westville to make sure he goes downhill and something happens and, he never makes it to trial. Do you think that is in, I mean, your opinion, do you think that is in the prosecution's best interest?
Well, I don't think they have any control over that. What I think in between the lines of what you're saying, what would have to happen for them to say he's not suitable to stand trial?
Mm-hmm.
Him staring goggle-eyed at around the courtroom while his very competent attorneys address these issues. We've seen nothing that takes us that far yet. I don't think. But again, is that something that's in the works? There are 4 specific tests that are used to see if a person is mentally competent to stand trial and whether they are insane or not. And I am not familiar with them. I've just read about them. But those would come into play if something started to shift that direction.
Yeah. And I mean, that you have the people that think, well, if they can get rid of him, whether it is by nefarious, or by, complete taking him out of the picture or putting him mentally incompetent, then you have some people, honestly, and I get comments all the time on my videos that if this is what they want, because then and I think I've said it myself, hypothetically, the, you know, the prosecution could say, hey, we got your man and he didn't, make it to trial or whatever, but we've got him, case closed, and everybody on that side wins. I mean, but I personally, although I can see, does that kind of thing happen? Oh, unfortunately, it does. However, I don't think with all of the interest in Delphi, if something like that were to happen, I think they would open such a major can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a terribly risky thing for them to do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's arguing both sides. Like if the Delphi, it's such a small place, if it had been a normal, locally contained, homicide, then I would say, well, maybe they could pull a number like that. But now you've got people worldwide covering this case, and I think that both sides are gonna have to play very above board, and well, uh, to get to the truth in this case and to get a verdict.
I think that there's, certainly the defense has adequate representation, with the two lawyers that he has. And I would be surprised if Nick and Cleland didn't have, support behind the scenes, people that are advising him, on how to carry the case. So
Yeah.
we would hope that there are, you just hope that there's just not some stupid mistake being made, like in the supervision level, or just rules being broken that result in evidence being thrown out, et cetera, things like this, things that have happened in the executing of the search warrant or the acquisition of that's what I worry about, like the stuff about the gun, the ballistic stuff is they fight about this stuff all the time in courts. Let them fight it out here. Don't exclude it. Let the experts get up there. There's all kinds of ways to do a blind test, with these guns to see if they can get consistent, markings and identification. So let them fight that out in court. I hope to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I know when the evidence was first presented about, the bullet, the magic bullet, I was like, oh, okay, well, they found this, he's guilty. But then, I heard so many other and studied so many other things on that it's like, okay, well, that is probably going to be thrown out, or at least argued to the point of neither side wins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess do you feel like that's what we're looking at? We're looking at the prosecution saying, okay, he confessed, and we're saying the defense saying, well, he's not, accountable because he's got mental issues. Are we kind of in that same situation where it could go, like, you could argue either side?
Well, and they will. And I think that ultimately, at some point, you're either going to have a lot of evidence that's credible, or you're going to have, not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So this has got a long way to go, and we don't know what else is going to come out. It seems like there's just something new and shocking, like every couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
So we have no idea what's
Mm-hmm.
ahead. We'll have a lot to talk about as soon as these documents roll.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I have my opinions and theories tonight,
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
those documents come out tomorrow, and thankfully I'm off work so I can download them and just be reading them. If I find stuff that is very damning to Richard Allen, I'm going to be the first one, to say, hey, this is very concerning. And, I do want to, I'm not going to sit and, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not going to stick to an opinion that I don't believe in. So I'm going to have to weigh it out. But yeah, there is every possibility that it could go either way. Are those, and who wrote the documents? Was there, I don't know. There's so much, I think what bothers me, honestly, and I know you're from that area, what bothers me about this case is the timing of the arrest and the election, because to me, that has always smelled fishy, like rotten fishy.
I I really don't. I think Liggett. He won by such a margin. I don't really think he had a strong contender. I don't know. I think it was coincidental. That's just my opinion. I mean, I'm in Indianapolis. I don't know all the dynamics up there for sure. It's an hour and 15 minutes from where I live. But
Yeah.
um, there's a somebody sells a cow in Delphi, and it's something to do with these murders. I mean, it's a truth. Anything that goes on,
Right. You're right.
a kid falls in a creek, or I mean, anytime there's something that's everyday controversy or timing or what have you, people think it has to do with this. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that I don't I don't think that they were trying to rush this in under while Liggett was you know still the detective. They 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 had to do this right. You just have to hope they didn't rush anything or do anything wrong. And I just hope that they consulted with ISP and any other, the FBI, anybody else. Um, so I really do. I hope that they dotted their I's and crossed their T's and everything, and that
Yeah.
nothing is thrown out that shouldn't be thrown out.
Well, I agree with that, but
Um,
I personally think that even if, let's say, they had suspected or they really knew about Richard Allen in June or July, do I think that they could have possibly, especially when Mike Thomas and everybody, you had all these other contenders for sheriff? I believe, and that's because I'm very aware of politics and politicians. Do I believe they could have, even if the evidence was there, said, okay, well, let's wait till closer to the election to really, yeah, I personally, no proof. That is just my theory. There is, in my opinion, politicians will allegedly do anything to win. Now, does that make the evidence or the search warrant wrong, or does that mean no? Not necessarily. Just my opinion, but I think that it's
the inside information that I have is that it was within a few weeks of before the arrest that they were simply going back through the records, going over things, and somebody noticed, well, hey, who's this guy? He said he was there.
yeah,
It was something that had been misfiled or was not properly followed up upon, and that's from a high level source. I believe that. Now, some people say, hey, they were looking at him, from the beginning. I don't know about that. You listen to what's said in the April 2019, presser, and some of that stuff, all came to fruition as far as the CPS building and the parking
hmm
and all that, so hiding in plain sight and what have you, all those things, fit. Um, but yeah, that's kind of that's my opinion. That's where I fall with it.
yeah.
They probably did, hear about this, in the preceding weeks or month, and that it came together as it did.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just cynical, but I know people a great studier of people and
Yeah.
politics, and and I'm not just picking on Indiana,
Sure.
and corruption in general
Yeah.
all over the place. So
Right.
I don't necessarily believe either way. You're gonna have to prove it to me. Make me believe. And I did want to address, and I know we're getting close to time, but we're going to have to go. I know you've got stuff to do in the morning. But
Yeah.
Unmasked Truth said, and this is true, inmates in prisons work the kitchen and are known to tamper with the food for child predators. I know in the county jail, the inmates fix all the food, and could they? Yes, and or could they be telling him that they are, whether
Mhm.
they're actually doing something to the food or not. And I'm not going to get as disgusting as these inmates will get. Um, could that have some kind of bearing on what Richard Allen eats and doesn't eat? I mean,
Well, I would think that the defense would bring that up.
mhm.
I would think that would be uh, front and center, instead of just not even explaining it at all. This did come up in another YouTube video. Someone talking about that and they were speculating that could be a reason he's not eating. But
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, it could be a lot. It could
yeah,
be medications that are making him sick. It could be what I mean, could he be trying to unalive himself? Yeah, it could be anything. So, yeah, that's I think personally, however this goes, I think the trial, unless there is a plea bargain or a confession or something that we don't see coming, I think it's going to be a three-ring circus. Not to say that the prosecution or the defense won't give a good, argument,
yeah.
but I think this is going to be a wild ride.
Oh, I think so. Every indicator that it will be quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
The trial is set for January. And my
Do you think
guess
that's
is
going to
that,
happen?
well, do you think it'd be that soon, or
Yeah. Do you think they'll actually do it in January?
I don't know? I mean, that's a long ways off in a way. They've still got a lot of stuff that they're going to have to go through in terms of the discovery. And a lot of things can happen between then and now.
Hmm.
And the it's going to be really hard to get in and you get a seat at that. There's going to be it's only 62 seats in that courtroom. It'll be. I hope there's been a recent change in Indiana law that where they can permit cameras in courtrooms if so allowed, and I hope that they do that for this one.
Oh,
Uh,
me too.
you
It's
know,
like I was talking with someone the other day. I mean, not that I'm going to be on the jury, but I don't feel like with the Lori Vallow case, hearing it, that's great, but it's important for me to see little things, the little ticks, the little twists, the little eye movements, and to me that says more. What you're not saying, says a lot more sometimes. So I don't know. Maybe they don't want us to see that. Maybe I don't know. I hope it is though. I
yeah,
really do. Uh,
right.
Well, you have given us a lot of good information, and look, you know, I I don't mind at all, you know, listening to different viewpoints and things. And I think you brought up that, and I have to give, I've heard this from more than just you, that Nick McClellan did a really good job in court, and that he held his own, or maybe even surpassed Rozzy. So, if that's true, then, you know, at least I don't want to see him. I wouldn't want to see the prosecution overwhelmed by a good defense, because then, it can sway the jurors in another way, or let somebody. I want to see it. I want to see a good
Yeah,
fight. Let's bring it on,
yeah.
for truth.
And I'm just gonna, my guess is that everybody in here probably knows who the murder sheet is, but I am gonna say that if you do want to hear more accounts learn more about these specific attorneys, and certainly check out the murder sheet. They do excellent coverage. Friends of mine who live in Indianapolis as well, actually Fishers, but they're going to have some really good shows coming up, and they're going to do one on McClelland and Judge Gall. So maybe we'll kind of get to know a little bit more about them
Yeah.
from the research that they do.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to all kind of people and all kind of channels, even channels that I may not necessarily agree with. I, you've got to learn. Don't close your mind. Whatever you do, do not close your mind on anything.
Right,
Listen,
right,
consider, and that's
right.
important. And I thank you, Tony, for coming and sharing your, point of view and giving us the lowdown on some of the stuff that we didn't think about, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure, and thank you everybody who listening and commenting tonight. Keep the dialogue open.
Yeah, and if you think of more things that we need to know, or maybe even when we get those documents, if you want to, come on again, just
Oh yeah.
shoot me an email.
Um, uh, yeah. I mean, I think it'll be it'll be a overwhelming probably.
Yes.
But who knows? It may not be as much as we think. But I would guess even if you got the search warrant, that's going to have all kinds of interesting
Oh yeah.
stuff in it. So we'll have, I think, much to talk about in the coming days. So
Yeah.
and you know what, you're also, I'll send you an email and you can post it, later. If people want to ask me any questions, they can send me an email or something.
Yeah. Or if they want to make a list of questions and ask
Yeah,
you
sure.
directly,
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
yeah.
That sounds
And
great.
I apologize. I wasn't able really to follow much of the comments on the side.
Oh, I know.
I wish I'll look through them all later. And
I know. We had a lot of comments, and I know there were a lot of good ones. And I don't have a mouse. I'm using my finger here, and I couldn't get
yeah,
exactly some of them. So, and they went by so fast that
right.
But thank you all for participating and being here. And geez, yeah, if I missed, I'll go back and look. But you can send me an email also if you want to see more. If you have questions for Tony, my email is silkyandsouthern@gmail.com. And, I'll be glad to talk to you.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Tony. You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, let's see. I'm not going to keep y'all either very much longer. I just want to make sure that there is nothing that you're saying that I need to know. I know there's probably a lot of people on tonight live. It's good to see so many. Look. Let me just say this outright. I love to see creators in here. Okay. I think Frank Meister was in here. Copfax was in here. CJ was in here. Who am I forgetting? Um, y'all. Anyway, look, I love to support other people, and I think we should change the culture of this ridiculous fighting. Okay, not everybody's gonna like me. Some people are gonna not be able to stand my channel. That's okay. I don't care. Go watch somebody that you identify with, and that's okay. Just so you know, I am sorry about. Saw a lot of you saying that it was there was a problem with the sound, like a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. We were having rain and storms. You live in a podunk place and you got no internet. So I don't know if it will be better on the replay. I hope. Uh, yeah, I'm crackling a lot. Sounds like my bones. Uh, let's see. Oh, hey, does anybody know the answer to this just real quick? And I'm gonna let y'all go. Uh, Milan 1885 says, "Where did Derek German and Cody Patty do their time?" I should know that. Were they in Carroll County? Were they in, does anybody know? Um, okay, I don't know when this was, Lambert Company. I don't know what happened in the chat. Sorry. Can anybody, yeah, just email me or message me. Um, gosh, there's so many good things. I'm gonna have to look at what y'all are saying. Uh, I'm trying to see if anybody. I want to show this. Does anybody know where Cody and Derek did their time? I don't know if it was Westville. Was it prison time or was it county time? That's something else I don't know. I haven't looked into that as much. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if. Oh, you can find the answer on. All right. Well, I can't find it right now. You can find. Sorry, Jinx. I can't control this mouse. My case. My. Y'all read the comments. Jinx just answered that question where we can find out. I know you can do like a national search. That's how I usually look up people. Indiana mycase.com. Is that what it is? That'll give you the answer. Okay, yeah. Interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting to know though if either one of them have ever been in Westville? And let me say this when because I didn't elaborate, but in when I say there are 100 ways that you can make somebody's life miserable uh, without being, I don't know, and still falling within the guidelines, yes. You can threaten them. You can say uh, all kinds of things as you're passing them, as you're able to talk into their area. Can you delay? Um, delay things. You're not withholding, food or commissary or whatever. It's delayed. Like, look, there's so many things that you can do. And I will honestly be interested because I don't work in a jail that appears to be like Westville or, with the major problems that I'm seeing with them. So I hope that he gets moved. Bottom line, because I feel like he has to be at this point. You have to prove to us that you are being fair to Richard Allen. If he is moved and he improves vastly, that's going to say a lot about Westville, okay? And the treatment there. However, if it's the same decline, um, you know, that's could be definitely on him or something that's going on with him. All right. I am going to let you go. Um, hello, Darren Barber Investigates. So many of you, so many. Thank you for being here. And if you liked it, hit that thumbs up button. That probably does more for me than anything. It's just seeing that thumbs up button. It helps, spread and the word. That's kind of whatever. I'm gonna stop talking now because apparently it's getting late. Uh, I hope you all enjoyed. If there's something that we didn't answer, you can either email me or just leave it in the comments when this video is up for a replay. Uh, let us know. What do you want to know? Is there something that we haven't said or talked about? Y'all know we're going to be looking through those documents. If they come out tomorrow, there's going to be endless hours of Delphi coverage, I can assure you. All right. Hello, Casey. All right. I am going to go. Thank you, Evil CJ. I hate to say evil. You're so sweet. Sweet, not evil CJ, for all your support in here. And I hope you all have a great, great evening. I'm going to have supper and go to bed soon because I've worked 13 hours today. plus this. Anyway, I hope I will see you. I don't know if I'm going to do a live in the next couple of days. It depends, honestly. I think I'm going to try to hop in CJ's tomorrow, but it's going to really depend on what comes out. If the documents come out tomorrow, uh, when I'll go live next. Anyway, stay safe and stay silky, and I will see you next time.